Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the absolute most captivating mysteries of human history, the ghost cities of antiquity. I want you to imagine a city just bustling with life, commerce, and art on one day, only to become a totally silent graveyard of stone and encroaching forests the next. For centuries, people have been completely obsessed with these ancient empires that seemingly vanished overnight, leaving behind these massive architectural puzzles that really defy a simple explanation.
So, it brings up the ultimate question, doesn't it? How exactly does an entire civilization just vanish? When we think about an empire dying, our minds usually go straight to those romantic myths, stories of lost continents, sudden divine retribution, or inexplicable mass disappearances. But the actual historical reality of what happens when an empire dies is way more complex, and frankly, it's far more fascinating than any folklore. To really understand it, we have to look past the optical illusion of archaeological time, where a collapse that takes decades can look like a single layer of ash to a modern digger.
While modern historians attribute these ruins not to sudden magic, but to something called systems collapse. Think of a highly complex society like a towering house of cards. Now, complexity makes these societies incredibly powerful, but it also makes them profoundly fragile. They rely on delicate, interconnected networks, things like agricultural stability, reliable trade routes, and bureaucratic communication. When just one major pillar of this system fails, it can trigger a rapid, cascading failure that brings the whole house down.
Case Study 1. The Sudden Shock, the Minoans, and the Wrath of Thera. Okay, to see how this happens in practice, we're going to do a few historical autopsies. Our first takes us back to the vibrant maritime Minoan Empire on the island of Crete, right around 1500 BC. The Minoans were completely unlike their contemporaries in the ancient Near East. They were this brilliant, relatively peaceful maritime empire. Get this, they didn't even build massive defensive walls around their palaces. Instead, they had multi-story buildings with advanced indoor plumbing, flush toilets, a unique writing system known as Linear A, and trade networks stretching all across the Mediterranean. But right near the height of their prosperity, a Category 7 volcanic eruption on the nearby island of Thera absolutely shattered their world.
For a long time, people thought the volcano wiped out the Minoans in a single day. But the collapse actually unfolded over time. Within hours, the eruption triggered 9-meter tsunamis that obliterated their coastal ports and completely destroyed the Minoan navy, which was the very foundation of their power. Over the following months, a colossal plume of ash blocked out the sun, poisoned their crops, and caused acid rain. So it wasn't overnight. Over the next few generations, the society spiraled into severe economic instability, and this allowed the Mycenaeans from the mainland to simply walk right in and invade a weakened, starving empire.
Case Study 2. The Climate Strangulation, the Indus Valley, Akkad, and the Maya. Now we're moving from a sudden volcanic shock to look at three separate empires brought down by a totally different culprit, slow-moving environmental disasters. You know how modern science can completely rewrite history? Well, for decades, the abandonment of the massive, meticulously grid-planned cities of the Indus Valley civilization around 1900 BC was blamed on a violent Aryan invasion. But modern forensics totally debunked that myth. The actual reality? A major climate shift. The Indian summer monsoons weakened and vital river systems completely dried up. The Indus people didn't die in a massive war. They made a rational, desperate decision to abandon their unsustainable cities and migrate to where the water was.
Or take the Akkadian Empire in Mesopotamia, the world's first true empire. Ancient texts blamed their sudden fall on the curse of Akkad, basically claiming a king angered the storm god, who then sent mountain monsters to destroy them. But soil samples from ancient cities tell the true story, the 4.2-kilo-year event. A catastrophic, global 300-year drought hit the region around 2200 BC. The resulting mass migration from the north down to the south totally overwhelmed their irrigation systems. This sparked famine and civil unrest that shattered the central government long before any invaders even showed up. And we see this repeated across the globe. Deep in the rainforests of Central America, the brilliant classic Maya civilization suffered a very similar fate between 750 and 900 AD. The Maya were master mathematicians and astronomers, but they fell victim to severe, multi-decadal megadroughts. And tragically, these megadroughts were catastrophically exacerbated by their own actions, massive agricultural deforestation. This triggered an absolute domino effect. To feed a booming population, the Maya cleared vast swaths of forest. Trees returned moisture to the atmosphere, so clearing them inadvertently reduced local rainfall. Then the natural drought hit, and their massive plaster-lined reservoirs turned into muddy pools. Because Maya kings claimed to be divine intermediaries who literally controlled the rain, their legitimacy totally crumbled when the rains stopped. Civil war erupted over the remaining water, breaking the social contract entirely. Millions had no choice but to abandon highly engineered marvels like Tikal and Palenque to the encroaching jungle.
Case Study 3. The Globalization Trap. The Late Bronze Age Collapse of 1177 BC.
Now, if you think globalization is a purely modern invention, wait until you see how interconnected the ancient world was around 1200 BC, and how that interconnectedness created a perfect storm of absolute ruin. In the Late Bronze Age, empires like the Egyptians, the Hittites, and the Mycenaeans were completely reliant on an incredible, vast supply chain. To make bronze weapons and tools, you need copper and tin. They were actually shipping tin from modern-day Afghanistan thousands of miles just to mix it with copper from Cyprus, while heavily relying on grain shipments from Egypt. It was a highly globalized and interdependent network spanning thousands of miles.
But then came the perfect storm of 1177 BC. The entire Eastern Mediterranean was battered simultaneously by a multi-century dry spell that caused catastrophic famines. There were earthquake storms rocking their heavy stone cities. Desperate, starving populations, often referred to as the mysterious sea peoples, began migrating en masse. They started attacking coastal cities and completely severing those delicate trade routes.
The speed of the resulting collapse was truly terrifying. Drought caused famine. Famine forced migrations. Those migrations disrupted the highly specialized trade routes. Suddenly, Cyprus couldn't export copper. Without copper and tin, bronze manufacturing just halted. And without bronze, you can't make agricultural tools or equip armies. The failure of just one partner pulled down the entire network. Great powers fell, and the entire region was plunged into an illiterate dark age.
The diagnosis and warning, the fatal cost of complexity. So, we've looked at the autopsies, right? Volcanic shocks, climate strangulation, and the globalization trap. Now we need to pivot to the overarching diagnosis. What actually unites all of these vanished empires? Well, the answer lies in the fatal cost of complexity. Historical sociologist Joseph Tainter argues that societies don't collapse because they're primitive or stupid. The Minoans and the Maya were incredibly intelligent. Tainter states that societies collapse because they reach a point of diminishing returns on investment in complexity. As societies grow, they solve their immediate problems by adding new, rigid layers of complexity, more bureaucracy, more specialized labor, more intricate infrastructure. He outlines this four-step life cycle. Steps 1 and 2 are pretty great. You had complexity, and you benefit from massive organization. But eventually, the sheer cost of maintaining this intricate system equals or even outweighs the benefits it provides. When an empire reaches this point, it hits step 4. The system becomes so rigid and expensive to maintain that it loses all of its reserve resilience. It literally has no buffer left. So when a sudden shock hits, like a changing monsoon or a disrupted trade route, it simply cannot adapt and it collapses under its own weight.
Now, it is incredibly tempting to view these ancient ruins as exotic anomalies. But let's look at our world today. Climate change and shifting weather patterns, severe supply chain vulnerabilities spanning thousands of miles, resource depletion, geopolitical instability. Our own highly interconnected modern world faces the exact same types of shocks that brought down the Indus Valley, the Akkadians, and the Late Bronze Age empires. The rules of societal complexity haven't magically changed just because we carry around smartphones.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to ponder. Are our modern, deeply intertwined systems resilient enough to withstand a massive shock? Or are we, right now, just building the next ghost cities?
Please like and subscribe.